out London's decision to extradite the WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, and on this I'm now joined by Gerard Batten, an MEP for the United Kingdom Independence Party. Sorry about the communication problems earlier. Now, Julian Assange blames the European arrest warrant system for the outcome of this hearing, but why shouldn't the British courts acknowledge the seriousness of this case and cooperate with Sweden?
Well, I think what Mr Assange's case does is illustrates the fundamental problems with the European arrest warrant, which I've been talking about now ever since it was introduced in 2004. He's an Australian citizen who they want to extradite to Sweden, but this affects every British citizen and anyone who's a guest in our country. And what it does, it removes the fundamental rights of the English courts to protect its own citizens and guests in our country, because they are simply not allowed to look at the prima facie evidence in a case like this and take it into account. It's what the lawyer called today tick-box justice. And I would now say, and I've been saying now for some time, that extradition, which is now called judicial surrender, has been reduced to a bureaucratic formality, and now I'm saying that it's actually nothing better than legalised kidnap.
Well, what are you doing about it then as an MEP there in Brussels? Because clearly the British courts are being influenced by Brussels.
Well, my party voted against this. I wasn't an MEP then. This has been going on, since before I became an MEP. We've consistently voted against it. All the other British parties voted for it. And Monday before last in the European in the European Parliament, I tried to get an emergency debate on the European arrest warrant and is it being misused for political purposes against political dissidents, and I was refused that debate, and the person who stood up and spoke against it in the Parliament was none other than Martin Schulz, the leader of the Socialists. I was amazed that somebody as important as him would get up and argue against someone as insignificant as me, but they were so terrified of having this debate that they stopped it in its tracks, and we were not even allowed a measly half an hour to actually talk about how this arrest warrant is being used now.
But I understand there could be a review, in June, over extradition procedures. Do you think anything will come out of that? I mean, Julian Assange reckons that something might come out of that, but what do you think?
Well, yeah, I've been pressing the previous Home Secretary and the current Home Secretary on a new number of these cases before Mr Assange's one came along, and pointing out all the injustices that are happening. I've asked to be consulted in this review. They're going to talk to witnesses and people who've direct evidence of all this, but I'm not sure what they can actually do, because once something becomes European law, then it can only be changed by unanimity. So you have to get all 27 states to agree to it, and I don't think that's going to happen. My view is we should unilaterally withdraw from all this rubbish, and we should have our own unilateral extradition proceedings with the rest of the world, whereby all we're asking is something fairly basic, which is that the English courts can actually look at the prima facie evidence, can decide if there's a proper case to answer, is there a proper justice system in the country concerned, is it politically motivated, and give the courts and ultimately the Home Secretary as well the power to refuse extradition if they think those things are not being fulfilled. We're not against criminals being extradited, but we want justice for our own people, which has been, our traditional safeguards under the law now have been destroyed and swept away under these mechanisms.
All right.
And this is just part of a much bigger process of a common system of European criminal law.
Let me ask you about your stance on Assange, putting aside these serious allegations in Sweden for which he could well be extradited, depending on that appeal. Do you think, though, he should be tried for his role in WikiLeaks and brought to account by the US?
Well, the US are saying that there are no charges against him, aren't they? How long has this been going on now? It's been going on for months, and they haven't figured out what the charges are yet. And also, not only are there no charges against him in America, there are no charges against him in Sweden. This is where our justice system is fundamentally different from continental ones, because in English law, the police have to investigate, then lay a charge, then you can be remanded in custody awaiting trial. On the continent, they have a completely different system whereby inquisitorial magistrates can ask for somebody to be detained in custody while they investigate the case. That is completely contrary to 700 years, 800 years of English law, and that's the system that we've now subjugated ourselves to. And interesting, if I can say about what's going to happen in
Just briefly, very briefly.
They are going to, they're going to use a very, very rarely used mechanism here to try this case in secret. So we won't even be able to hear what's being said, what the allegations are, what the charges are, and all the full evidence, because it's going to be done in a secret hearing, which is absolutely astounding.
Gerard, time is upon us. Thanks very much indeed. Gerard Batten, member of the European Parliament for London, for the UK Independence Party, joining us there in the British capital. Thanks very much indeed.